everybody? Ben here. We're back with a sort of spur of the moment video because I was able to get my hands on the new starter decks. Both the Wolf of Friendship and the Dragon of Courage starter decks featuring Metalgarurumon and Wargreymon respectively. For those who don't know the release date of these starter decks, both at your local game stores as well as big box stores such as Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, whatnot, is Friday, October 13th. So they should be widely available very soon. This week is more of like a pre-release week for these starter decks. I think Bandai started doing this with the Beelzemon starter deck, where basically the week before release, you have a bunch of like small tournaments where players can buy the decks a little early, and you can run like sealed tournaments with this, constructor tournaments with these decks, with the sort of overall idea to introduce both new and old players to what each deck can bring to the table, what cards are in the deck, and how they run. So I think it's a great idea. You know, I think it's a fun way to kind of get people involved. I definitely know a lot of people who use these events to just get into the game, and I think it's a fun way to do so. So definitely encourage trying to check those out when you can. If you do buy starter decks during these pre-release weeks, you do get pre-release packs as well. So the whole point of this video, honestly, will be to open these decks together, open the packs together, see what we get out of the pre-release packs, and then also just go over, you know, what you get in a starter deck, what comes with it, what cards come with it, and sort of like a brief overview of some of the cards too, because I think both decks do include cards that are pretty nice pieces to already established decks, alongside just being pretty solid decks in and of itself. I did buy 2 decks of each. Now you can do so if you want like your full playset right out of the gate. Some people will just opt to wait for singles. It's really whatever you want to do, but do note that the super rares that come with the deck, as well as some of the rare cards, you only get 2 of. So if you do want your full playset, you either have to get the singles like I said, or you can just buy a separate deck. I usually just buy 2 because 1, I like to support my LGS, and I also just like to support the game in general. So I bought my 2. We'll open up 1 of each together like I said, and then open up the pre-release pack. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start with the Dragon of Courage first. So let's get cracking here with the pre-release pack. The pre-release pack should come with a foiled and stamped version of like some of the cards that come with the starter deck. Usually, if I'm not mistaken, like common and uncommons, but oh, pretty nice. We get a Tai and Agu pre-release card. So not bad out of those 2. So for the starter decks, full disclosure, I'm a little bit picky about how I keep these open and stored, so I try not to destroy the boxes as best I can. So Bandai is usually pretty good about their packaging as well. So here's the deck straight out of the box. You do also get a playmat included with the deck. Obviously, just sort of like your typical paper playmat. Pretty nice design with the Wargrey. And if you flip it to the other side, you get your sort of starter line with the Agu, Greymon, and Metal Gray. I honestly really like these designs. I kind of wish they gave them like without all the like battle area security stuff, because like this would also just make like a pretty nice poster, you know. So anyways, I usually keep these just for collection's sake, but it is a nice added bonus to these starter decks itself. So going into the actual cards themselves, you do get memory gauges as well. So Bandai includes pretty decent quality memory gauges that you can use on the fly. And to start off the deck here, you get 4 of the new Koromon egg. This is actually a pretty decent egg, I think, because all turns, once per turn, when you redirect an attack, your Digimon gets 1k DP until the end of the turn. So I think a pretty decent egg for either Black War or even like the Raid Wargrey. I'm interested to see what more experienced and established players of each deck will cook with, because you know, I still think the draw Koromon will be sort of the more favored egg in most of those builds, but you know, I think the +1 KDP can honestly be quite effective, especially when you consider that tie, when you redirect, allows you to draw one, so that mechanic is almost substituted by these two cards. Obviously, BT5 Red Koromon is sort of like the draw, but here you kind of get the best of both worlds with the DP boost and the draw if you can get your tie and your Koromon out. So I'm curious to see what people cook with that. Like I mentioned before, you get 2 of Agumon here as the rare. This is not a bad Agu. I think it's pretty decent. You know, at the start of your main phase, if your opponent's got a Digimon in play, you gain a memory, which can be nice with the Greymon effect that we'll see very shortly. And then all turns once per turn, if you redirect an attack, you gain a memory. So simply by blocking, if you do survive the block, then you can also gain a memory too. So it's almost like you're forcing your opponent to lose memory every time they swing, which can be very annoying. We get 4 of the clear Agumon here. Gives the stack reboot as an inheritable, so pretty good generic egg. You know, I think having reboot, particularly in a black deck, is very helpful and very good. We don't have any other reboot level 3s outside of, I think, Toy Agumon from like, I forget which BT, but it was like BT2 or BT3. So having another reboot inheritable target is quite good. Solarmon is basically just a pseudo searcher, if you want to put it that way. Basically, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a black card, you add it to hand. You trash the rest, which, you know, if you run this in a dual color deck, you do run the risk of maybe trashing a card. So if you're running like a black-red deck and it happens to be a red card that you reveal off of Solarmon, you trash it. So again, sort of like a generic searcher. Toy Agumon you get 4 of. This guy's a blocker. We haven't seen this effect in a while where, you know, if this Digimon were to attack, you lose memory. That's something that we haven't seen, honestly, since like BT4, BT5, where you had these like blocker Digimon that were really just there to block, because if you were to swing, you would lose memory. That doesn't mean they can't swing, right? Like that they can still swing. It just means that when they swing, you have to make a choice to lose the memory. Mechanorimon is another level 4 within the deck. You get 4 of these, and it's another inheritable to give reboot, which again, not bad for a lot of these black control-y decks. You get 4 Tankmon, which is sort of like a generic level 4. Has jamming, which can be nice, but I think just sort of standard champion there. This card is something we do want to talk about. The new Greymon, which you only get 2 of, I think is very, very good for a lot of the Greymon, Wargreymon, sort of black Wargrey decks. Insecurity. So this has a security effect where after the security check, you can play out a Tai Kamiya Tamer card or an Agumon from your trash or hand without paying the memory cost. So it really gives you a cheap way to get your Tamers and your Agumons out on board. If you can imagine, you know, for those who've played Black War and Wargreymon before, like the deck really struggles sometimes from being able to have memory efficient plays where you can either play out your Tamers or look out for your Searchers. This guy fixes that. Obviously, it has to be in security for the effect to happen, but I think because of that reason, you run it at a 4 of, and I think it's a very good sort of cheeky way to cheat stuff out on board. So I really like this Greymon. Inheritable's the same as Agumon, where, you know, if you redirect an attack all turns, once per turn you get to gain a memory. So if these two are in the stack, I mean, you're looking at a stack that if we're to redirect, your opponent loses 2 memory. We have 4 Nightmon on play to delete, a play cost of 5 or less. You know, kind of generic black level 5. Doesn't really do a whole lot, I think, in the meta. But I think as part of the starter deck, not bad. Andromon, you get as a 4 of as well. When Digivolving, you Digivolve -1. Again, inheritable for reboot. Moving on to 2 rares here. We have 2 Metalgarurumon. This inheritable gives it security check +1, and then it's inherently a blocker. I'll be honest, not my favorite Metalgarurumon. I don't think it really does a whole lot for your Wargrey and Black Wargrey decks. Yes, security check +1 as an inheritable is not bad to have, but at the same time, I just feel like there's so many different things that do that. And at the same time too, if you're playing more control-y sort of passive aggressive aggro, like this guy doesn't really do a whole lot because he's just a blocker. Yes, he's 8k, but an 8k blocker that has a +1 inheritable is just sort of meh in my opinion. I think your other Metal Greys just do so much more. And then our boss monster here is Wargrey Ace. Look at the foiling here, it's pretty nice. Little bit of a contrast to the box toppers that we got with BT13. But this card is very good. It's a very sneaky play. Unfortunately, we did not get the alt. For those who don't know, each starter deck has the chance to have like an alt version of the top end. So you can get an alt Wargreymon Ace or an alt art Metalgarurumon Ace. So we get two of these guys. It's a Ace Digivolution, so you can counter Digivolve during your opponent's turn without paying the play cost. And basically when Digivolving, you can get this big blocker out on board. The timing of it is important because if your opponent, it occurs when your opponent declares an attack. So if your opponent swings and you have this card in hand and a viable level 5 on board, you can say, I'm going to Ace Digivolve, go into this guy without paying the play cost, and then, you know, choose to block or whatever because now his effects are live. So it's a decent card. Ace as a mechanic, I'm interested to see how it's going to play into like the current BT13 meta, just because I think BT14 is when it really gets fleshed out. I think with these two cards here, we're sort of seeing the introduction of it, but I'm really interested to see how like Ace as a whole sort of kind of progresses with the game itself. Last level 6, we get 4 High Andromon. Again, sort of a generic black level 6 blocker, and then you get to delete something with a play cost of 8 or less. Again, I think good for like the sealed formats where you kind of don't have an alternative level 6. I don't really see a world where you run this card in any deck, but you know, pretty decent again for the sealed pre-release formats. You do get 4 of the Tai Kamiya. He is a memory setter, so pretty good tamer here. All turns when you are to like redirect an attack target or you switch an attack target, you can suspend this tamer to draw 1 and then give one of your opponent's Digimon, or one of your Digimon, sorry, plus 2k DP. So if you can imagine like really just buffing up your big stacks even more with this tie. The consistency piece is also very nice to give you that extra draw, and setting your memory to 2 is also, I think, really helpful. You know, BT12 tie, as good as it is, you know, doesn't set you memory. It does give you that, you know, plus 1k boost and that plus 1 memory, but having that extra memory setter and the ability to buff up your stack and draw, I think is really, really good. Breakthrough of Courage is, I think, a decent option. Basically sort of like a nice recursion piece. I won't go into the full text of it, but really similar to what the purple one would do. Just helps you kind of cycle through your pieces a little bit more. Trident Arm, you get 4 of these guys. It's another nice like removal option / like security option that the deck has access to. You get to de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon by 3, which is pretty devastating, particularly in this format with like OTK. And then one of your opponent's Digimon gains start of turn or start of your main phase, this Digimon attacks. So basically, if you can imagine, like if you have these big blockers out on board and you sort of force your opponent to swing, you know that you've already de-digivolved them, and now they're kind of like a smaller body and they're probably gonna die. So similar to what like Cranimon wants to do, you know, but I still think like a pretty good option card, pretty good generic option card. So that is the new starter deck for, at least for Greymon. Like I said, I think the pieces that are going to have a lot of benefit or a lot of like play are going to be these guys over here. Like the Tai, the Wargrey Ace, the Greymon, the Agumon, the Koromon probably will see pretty decent amount of play as well, depending on how people cook with it. Otherwise, I think it's pretty generic. You know, I think this deck is more set up for like sealed play, with the benefits of having these pieces be a lot more viable like in the meta itself. So that's that deck here. Pretty nice opening. And now we'll move on to the Wolf of Friendship or the Metalgarurumon deck. So we'll start with the pre-release pack. And we get an Elecmon and a Skull Mammothmon. So not as lucky as our Dragon of Courage pre-release pack, but still pretty nice. Alright, so similar to what we saw, we will probably get the deck here right out of the box, and then you get a nice little playmat here. Similar design to the Wargrey one, where you get the Wargrey, here you get Metalgarurumon, which is pretty nice. Again, like, honestly, without the battle area stuff, would be a pretty decent, like, poster to have. And then over here, if you flip it over, you get your Gabu. Ooh, I actually really like this one, because I think it's a little different than the other one. But the Gabu Garurumon, the Wargreymon, it's pretty nice. So that is included with all your starter decks. And let's take a peek here. So for the eggs, you get the Sunomon here. So the whole point of Garurumon moving forward with the new Melga and what the starter deck will try to do is running the purple engine as opposed to your typical blue engine. So you're going to be doing a lot of drawing. You're going to be doing a lot of trashing as well, with the idea to use that ability to trash to like give yourself that unsuspend DP boost and whatnot. Which is why, you know, moving ahead, and we may do a discussion video about this later, is like a lot of the Metalgarurumon decks moving forward into the meta like are running like the Beelstar package, where you're really able to set up Beelstar's trash where it can utilize a lot of its options a lot more effectively and efficiently. But we'll get into that later. We get 4 of the Elecmon here, which is just an on-play to draw. Pretty generic purple rookie. This guy we want to talk about for sure. The new Gabumon. So similar to Agumon, if it's in play and it's the start of your opponent's main phase, you gain a memory. And then when attacking once per turn, you get to draw one and trash one from hand, which really plays into the effects of a lot of your top end. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but the inheritable is something that you'll kind of be a common theme that runs through the deck. You get 4 of this new Tapirmon. Inheritable will give retaliation, otherwise it's a pretty generic purple card. Gotsumon is, again, a kind of generic rookie. It does have retaliation as its sort of inherent effect. So similar to the, if you remember the black equivalent where it was just a blocker, and if you swing with it, you lose memory. Similar here, it's retaliation. And this time, if you swing during your opponent's turn, you lose 2 memory. So again, a mechanic we haven't seen for a little bit, but I think an interesting one. You get 4 of Bakemon, which is a pretty generic level 4 blocker. 5k blocker is pretty common. You get 4 of Merimon, which is sort of like a vanilla. So in sealed events, like any sort of vanilla, 6k is pretty decent. On deletion, you can gain a memory as well. So if you choose to pop the effect, something that you can kind of tie into a combo play. This card, similar to your Greymon, is only available with 2 in the deck. So if you need your playset, you either order the single or you buy 2 decks like I did. Inheritable, like the Gabumon, it's when attacking, draw 1, trash 1. When digivolving, you get to draw 1. And then you trash 1 from your hand. During security, if it's checked in security, you get to play out a Gabumon for free, and you get to play out a Matashita for free. So basically the like equivalent of what Greymon does for the other starter deck, you get that here as well. So really good card for this deck. Similar to what, like I said, similar to what Greymon is for the Thai deck. Next we have 4 Pumpkinmon, again, sort of like a big level 5 for the sealed deck. On play, you can play out one of your level 3 Digimon from trash without paying the play cost. Can come up, particularly if you're setting up your trash effectively with all the Gabumon and Garurumon effects. Mammothmon is a level 5 blocker, has Retaliation as an inheritable. Again, I think more so for sealed play than actual like relevant play. Here is a card that is more meta relevant, which is Wargreymon as a rare. Again, you only get 2 of these guys. When attacking once per turn, you can trash 1 card from your hand to unsuspend this Digimon. So I think something that Melga will benefit from, just because, you know, you're drawing and trashing so much that this is just another reason or another way to set up your trash. And then inheritable when attacking, if you trash a card from your hand, you can unsuspend this Digimon as well. So pretty good. So similar to what Melga back in the day used to do, you notice like a lot of like effects to unsuspend swing, right? So that's a very common theme in this deck. Unfortunately, again, no alt art, but we do get 2 of the Metalgarurumon Ace. I personally like this Ace card a little bit more than the Wargreymon one, just because this card I think is a little bit more interactive. So if you Ace Evo with this card, you can trash up to 3 cards from your hand. For each card you trash, you gain a memory. So think about how disruptive that can be, right? You know, if your opponent doesn't have a memory setter, they choose to swing, you have a level 5 out. You know, I've seen this teched into Hunters before all these decks came out, where you had your Arrestor Dramon, Superior Mode sort of already swung with, right? Your opponent swings and you say, okay, well, you know what? Ace Evo, we're going to Digivolve technically for free into this. On Digivolve, you can choose to trash 3. So if you trash 3, you gain 3 memory. You can take away the turn, you know. I think in the future, looking forward into what like Melga and like Wargreymon decks will want to do is basically, you know, you Digivolve, you can trash 3 to keep this like a free Digivolution. Go into Melga X Antibody, do Melga X Antibody shenanigans. So you're doing so many things at such a very efficient memory cost that it's pretty scary. You know, I think Melga, unfortunately for folks who don't like the dog deck, they're going to be seeing a lot of it again. So just be prepared for that. We'll try and make a video looking forward to some of the cards for EX5, just because we know that Nationals is going to be heavily focused around that. So I think we're planning on making a video in the near future regarding all of that. But back to the starter decks, you know, Skull Mammothmon, again, sort of like a generic level 6 here for sealed format. Digivolving, draw 1. And then all turns once per turn. You know, when you trash a card via effect, you can play out a level 4 lower Digimon. Which I think really in the sealed format, like, this I think is nice in the sense that you can kind of wideboard your opponent and just rush them down. So if you're thinking about playing in any of these pre-release events, which we'll be wrapping up soon, unfortunately, I honestly probably would pick the purple deck, just because of your memory efficiency and your ability to like just spit out little bodies if you set things up correctly. Matashita is similar to Tai in that it's a memory setter, so it's a 4 cost to play. And then all turns, when one of your effects trashes a card in your hand, you can suspend this tamer to gain 1. Note that it's all turns, similar to Tai being all turns. So very interactive with your opponent. So I think that's nice that we're seeing a lot of these cards that have effects that are viable during your opponent's turn. You know, I think in Digimon, we're so used to having like, you know, turns where we kind of watch our opponents play. You know, I think now with these ace cards and some of the mechanics that we're seeing in future sets, like, it's really nice to see that the game is becoming a lot more interactive. And I think Bandai has taken maybe a token from like One Piece, you know, where there are a lot of like counter plays and a lot of trigger plays that you can use during your opponent's turn. I think we're going to start to see some of that here in Digimon, and I think that's pretty exciting. Lament of Friendship, you get this as a 2 of. I think similar to the other option card here that Tai and the Wargrey deck had. Here you get to just recur out bodies. So as purple, since you're setting up your trash a whole lot, you know, being able to just like play up bodies from trash is pretty helpful. So this lets you do that. Baldy Blow, you get this out of 4 of. Basically, you just play this and you delete one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. Not a bad option for removal, particularly again in like sealed format, because it's a cheap 4 cost to delete something. More often than not, your opponent will be kind of like playing like the stack game where they just have to try to keep raising their stack and like relying on their stack to live. So if you can disrupt that, that's sort of like the idea of sealed format. But yeah, that was the unboxing of both of these decks. Like I said, official release date will be Friday, October 13th. A lot of these pre-release events allow you to get these decks beforehand. So if you can pick these up beforehand, great. If not, hopefully you enjoyed this unboxing video. Like I said, spur of the moment, but hopefully something that was helpful for you folks to see like what's included in the decks, what you get out of it, what you can look forward to mechanic-wise. I think we'll probably do a little bit more of a detailed breakdown, like maybe like for a video Friday or Saturday, so that you folks can kind of get an idea as to like what these decks actually do have to offer moving forward into the meta and what impact it has. But for now, this was just a brief like unboxing that again was sort of spur of the moment. So hope you all enjoyed. Let us know what you think. Let me know what you think about these decks. Are you gonna pick these up? Are you gonna buy singles? Hopefully some of you all can make it out to a pre-release event. Always support your local game stores. They're the reasons we're able to play this game and have the community that we have. So, if you can do so, great. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.